Welcome back to week 3 of the P-Dub Report. We were in person last week. We're going to be separate today. We got a lot to go over. Week 2, maybe the craziest week of NFL we're going to have this season. Scott, how we feel today?
I mean, I feel good. You know, week 2 was a little rough Thursday, Sunday for the P-Dub Nation. Sometimes we got to take those L's on the chin. But we bounced back Monday. We had a good, nice 2-1 Monday. Had the Falcons on the spread. Sprinkled the money line personally and got to the window late. But yeah, we're ready to take on week 3. We got a lot to talk about today. I'm excited to talk about it. And let's get this thing started, baby.
Yeah, before we dive into week 3, got to touch on week 2. Probably the craziest week we'll see. The books must have loved it. I don't think there's going to be a week where they make more money. Upsets across the board. Saints in Dallas, Raiders in Baltimore. You had the Bucks in Detroit, and then you just said it last night, Monday Night Football. Eagles let it slip last second. Barkley through the hands. Brutal losses, brutal upsets. Books are happy. Just takeaway, Scott, from that crazy week we just saw.
I mean, you're not going to see another weekend like this in the NFL. I would say 9 outright dog winners. 9. I mean, that's crazy. Amazing. It just doesn't happen, right? Covers, yes, but not dog outright winners. Tons of upsets on the road. I mean, so much to talk about from week 2. Ravens go down. I mean, it's just unbelievable against the Raiders. We talked about how bad the Raiders were last week, and they go into Baltimore and get a dub. Just amazing stuff. But that's why we love the NFL. That's why we love this, because you just never know what you're going to get, baby.
Yeah, and that's going to kind of take us into our next segment here, most surprising 2-0 teams. And actually, before we go too far in depth on that segment, the Saints, we just got to talk about are the Saints the best offense ever? I mean, what's going on here? I mean, the first week, okay, they did it against Carolina. Then they go up and do it against Dallas. I mean, just a historical start offensively to the last couple of weeks. Derek Carr's back, apparently. Alvin Kamara's back. Chris Olave is becoming the top receiver he was touted to be. What is going on with this New Orleans team?
I mean, I love them. We talked about last week. We talked about, is the Saints the real deal? I mean, I'm going to say yes. I don't know how you can deny that after what they put up against the Dallas D, the Dallas D on the road. Let's go over a few numbers real quick on the Saints. The number 1 offense in the NFL. The number 4 defense in the NFL. Rushing yards, 3rd. Here's the most important stat for me. 3rd down efficiency. How many of you, I know each of us are in the same boat. You got to bet. I got action. 3rd downs and your team is just not converting. It's the most important down.
100%.
And I just love that they're converting. Sacks 3rd in the NFL, and INTs they have 4. They're 2nd in the NFL. I absolutely love the Saints and what they're doing. They're a force to be reckoned with, but we will see. We talked about it last week. They've got Philly at home. They're on the road in Atlanta, and then KC. Then they come back home and play the Bucs. So are the Saints the real deal? If you're asking me, my answer is yes.
Yeah, that offense. I mean, just putting up historical numbers. It has to be the real deal. I mean, we'll see what happens as the season goes on. Don't want to overreact to just 2 wins. But putting up 40-plus back-to-back weeks to open up the season, just ridiculous. I believe it's Derek Carr. They haven't had an offensive possession where that dude doesn't lead them to points, or they started off 16 for 16. Points. Alvin Kamara whips out 4 touchdowns out of nowhere. Big kudos to the New Orleans Saints. And really the rest of that division. I mean, that's going to take us right in here to this segment. Biggest surprises, 2-0 to start the season. Tampa Bay Bucks also joined the Saints there. Who has surprised you the most going 2-0 so far to start the year?
I mean, I was going to go to the Saints, to be honest, but there's some other surprises out there. I mean, there's 9 teams that are 2-0 in the NFL right now. I mean, I'm going to talk about a little bit about Harbaugh and what he's done in LA. I mean, do we expect, I know their schedule's been a little weak. Raiders, Panthers, are they the real deal? J.K. Dobbins, we talked a little bit and touched on him last week, looks outstanding. And Harbaugh's got them believing. You know, can they continue this trend? Time will only tell, but I like what I'm seeing out of the Chargers. But when they get some real competition, we'll see if they step up. But so far, I'm loving the Saints. Chargers are close 2nd.
That's another one of those parts about that Ravens loss to the Raiders. You got to imagine the brothers talked a little bit about game planning for Vegas after they just faced them there for the Chargers, and the Ravens still lost that. I kind of have a hot take for my biggest surprise 2-0 team. the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's not because they're not a good team. We all know what they are, the two-time reigning Super Bowl champs, but typically they're a bit of a Super Bowl hangover. And most importantly, they faced the Bengals and the Ravens, and both of them came down to the wire. It took a black cleat from Likely, and it took a game winner from Harrison Butker, a Burrow fumble, but they sneaked out 2 wins against 2 top teams in the AFC, and they got those out of the way. Typically, you got these teams, and you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are a 2-0 team to start. They have 6 division games in their final 7 games of the season. I mean, it's just going to be a tough close to the year. Now the Chiefs, they get 2 of the hardest games on their schedule out of the way with W's. I was really surprised. I thought one of those teams was going to stop them here in the first 2 weeks.
I feel you. I mean, there's nothing. I was on KC this week. Obviously, you heard it last week. It was our Civil War game. I love KC. I love Mr. Mahomes. It is what it is. And they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And they've started out hot. Yes, again, they're going to be in close ball games, but can you win the close ball games? That takes you from good to great. And KC is a great team.
And then we're going to go right on into what teams should be panicking. Now, some of these are 0-2 teams. Some of these are 1-1 teams. You got some issues, maybe some injuries, and the injuries starting to add up. Tua and Jordan Love, a couple of your better quarterbacks in the NFL now with QB injuries. That's always worrisome. But let's go ahead and get into this one. Who of these teams should be panicking? A lot of teams with issues, Scott. Let me hear who you've got.
So I don't think this is a surprise the most. I think Baltimore's the biggest, got to hit the biggest panic button thus far. We got to look at what's coming up. In their next 3, we got at Dallas, at home against Buffalo, and then at Cincinnati, right? Cincinnati's at 0-2, yet they're going to bounce back, and they're going to be probably a playoff ball club by the end of the year. So we have the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP, potentially 0-5. So 6% of teams since 2020 that started 0-2 made the playoffs. So you're talking about 6 out of 100 teams. I mean, are the Ravens playoff caliber? What do you think, Ben? Can they make the playoffs?
It's going to be a tough road to the playoffs, especially with Cincinnati starting off 0-2 as well. Now, the Bengals, this is their 3rd straight season starting the 0-2, so I do not believe it's time to panic for them. They're comfortable in this territory. They've had slow starts. They pick up. And each of the last couple of seasons, minus when Burrow got hurt, they've had big stretches going 9-1 straight up, 10-1 straight up, where they just rip off wins to become the best team in football for 2 months. And I still see that happening for them. Definitely some concerns with Baltimore, especially because of the early struggles. Typically in the past, I mean, granted, Lamar stayed healthy last year, but in the 2 prior seasons, they had great starts and horrible finishes with Lamar injuries. And now it's going to be looming over your head a little bit. If you have that Lamar injury and you're in week 10, week 11, and you have some must-win games to close out the year to make the playoffs, definitely going to be a bit concerning there. Steelers might have caught a big blessing with this schedule being so front-loaded where they just might get a big enough lead on this division. They could come out with a division win just based off the early success they have with the easy schedule.
Just want to add one more thing. When you have O-line issues, which the Ravens do, only 2 returners, that makes for a rough season. I know Lamar, obviously, he's mobile. He can move. He can get outside the pocket when there's pressure. But when you got an O-line that's struggling, and Henry, I think in the first half, he had under 20 yards. Yes, he had a couple big runs in the second half. But, I mean, the guy's not the same. He's getting older. You got to create the holes for him. And if you can't, you got no running game. Lamar's not that type of quarterback that's just going to get back there and fire it and take you to the playoffs or into the Super Bowl. So, huge issues for the Ravens. I've got a huge panic button for them. We'll see if they can, at least win 2 out of the next 3.
I got a big panic button, and it is with a 1-1 team, the Detroit Lions. I opened up the season with 2 home games, opening one against the LA Rams. They almost lose that one. They were losing late. They forced overtime with the field goal. They get the coin flip to go the direction, and then they lose at home to the Tampa Bay Bucks. Granted, both those games play off revenge. They knocked both of them out in the playoffs last year. But their division's a little bit tougher now. Minnesota's looking stronger. Green Bay, we know what they are with Jordan Love when he is healthy. It is a little bit of a time to panic, and not from the standpoint of maybe missing the playoffs. I'm talking about time to panic as in they were at a lot of people's Super Bowl favorites coming into this season. The entire NFC is now looking a little bit weak. That's a horrible loss you had there for the Niners. The Eagles can't let that slip yesterday against Atlanta. A bunch of issues. NFC as a whole, it's a weaker conference. That's not a secret. But now at the top of that, Detroit Lions, a lot of people had them picked to be there toe-to-toe with San Francisco in the NFC Championship game. Might be time to panic. They're nearly to an 0-2 start, both games in Detroit. They're going to have some making up to do here if they want to be considered one of the top teams in the NFC.
Hey, let me add to that. I mean, I was on the Rams this week. I mean, I actually like the way the Rams played against Detroit on Sunday night to open up the season. But then the Rams get blown out by the Cardinals. I mean, so are the Rams as quality to play a Detroit team tough, right? When they go and get blown
Yep.
out by the Cardinals,
Yep.
that's another huge panic button symbol for me. I'm low on Detroit as of now. They're gonna have to show me something before I'm gonna actually back them here moving forward. So
Yeah,
I'm on the same page with you right there, Ben.
I was pretty high on the Rams coming into the year. Granted, they've had a bunch of issues. Now, Cup and Nakua both hurt. The O-line's a mess. But it is an interesting point. Were they looking ahead a little bit to this matchup coming up with the Niners they have coming in on their home field, division rival? Obviously, they have owned Arizona for the last 6-7 years, but it's the inverse. San Francisco has owned them for the last 6-7 years. Are they trying to buck that trend as well? So I'll be very interested. I felt very similarly with Cincinnati losing to New England, coming back, giving Kansas City a good fight. It seemed like they were just looking on to the next week in the schedule.
So, and when you only got 17 games, I get look ahead spots, maybe in the NBA or the MLB, but I mean, for me, that's tough to wrap my head around. You got 17 games, true look ahead spots. You got to come to play. Come on, every day, 60 minutes, baby.
Especially at this point in the season, can't lose your season now. We got an interesting conversation coming up for you guys. Couple of young quarterbacks, couple and 0-2 teams. And one of them just got benched. It's the number one pick from each of the last couple of seasons. Bryce Young now benched for Andy Dalton after their horrendous 0-2 start. And Caleb Williams, they lose it on Sunday Night Football to the Houston Texans. He has not looked good offensively, has yet to throw a passing touchdown in either of his 2 games. The completion percentage well below 50%, getting sacked and bad scrambles. Both quarterbacks on the hot seat. I mean, Bryce Young literally just got kicked off the hot seat. But let's just have a conversation about these 2 quarterbacks. If Bryce Young was in the position of Caleb Williams, if he had the weapons around him, had the defense, everything else, do you think he is looking as or more competitive than Caleb Williams? I'm going to hear your thoughts on this matchup.
First of all, let me get this out. I was disgusted by Caleb Williams being the number 1 pick. I didn't like him at USC. I mean, once you get into secondaries and defenses that move a lot quicker than the Pac-12 or the old Pac-12, I should say, it's a whole different ballgame in the NFL.
100%.
Do I think Bryce Young would be in a better position if he was on the Bears with more weapons? I do not. The man's confidence is low. And when your confidence is low, you're not going to perform it well in any situation. Yep. Granted, if you have more weapons, the confidence level can rise. But I didn't like him either at Alabama. I just either quarterback I'm not high on. I don't think either one will end up to be great pros. Caleb Williams may be an average pro by the end of it, but I don't like the way he's looked thus far. He did have 174 yards and 62% against the Texans, so he did get a little bit of a pickup, but definitely not any. He had no in that win versus in the Texans. He had, or not Texans. He had the win versus who they play in the first
Titans. They pulled that one out. Yeah, so I said 0-2, but they pulled out that win against Titans. Excuse me.
That's right, against the Titans. So. He didn't look good there, obviously, but he is a rookie. He's 2 games in. I mean, you really can't assess too much, but painted nails, not for me, bro. I'm not high on either, brother. No way.
Yeah, I'm not high on either. I'm very interested to see with Bryce Young, just how the market reacts now that he's being benched or the trade starting. I gave so much credit to the Pittsburgh Steelers for how they got quarterbacks at a discount in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Seems like Bryce Young is going to be that QB available here to do something similar with. Maybe both teams in New York, the Jets, as in the future, past Aaron Rodgers, the Giants in the future, past Daniel Jones and his horrendous contract. There should be some teams on the market looking for a chance. I mean, it's a very similar situation to Baker Mayfield. I mean, multiple teams took chances on him, and now it's finally working out here in Tampa Bay. Bryce Young might be a QB to look out for a discount price.
Here, just real quick, want to add, they brought in Canellis, right? That was one of his main things as the head coach. He turned really around Baker Mayfield, and he also turned around Geno Smith. I mean, so he had some impact with some other quarterbacks, yet those are veterans at the time that he had. Those guys had turnaround seasons. You got Bryce Young. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. I don't see it. I think he benches him because of confidence reasons. He's giving him a break. The media's all over him. He's giving him a breather. And I think if Dalton doesn't have a decent game, I think Bryce Young comes back in week 4 and we'll see what happens. But again, I think he's not going to have any impact if you ask me.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. Moving on here. Next one, we got Survivor Pick. The rest of the show, guys, going to be all about week 3 stuff. Survivor picks, free props. Our Civil War game, which we are now 1-1 head-to-head on there. We'll see what we can get going up this week. But Survivor Pick, Scott, we're both 2-0 here. We're surviving on to week 3. I can't wait to hear what you got.
Week 1 Eagles. So here, I'm going to have to give it up for BA. Now, I like to call Ben BA. I'm going to have to give it up for a little. He has not taken any massive favorites. So he's in a much stronger position than I am. I went week 1, I went Eagles. Check off that box. Week 2, I go the reigning champ Chiefs. Check off that box. So he's in a stronger position. But it's not how you start, baby. It's how you finish. So here we go. I'm going with the Bengals on Monday night. Here's the thing. The 0-2 Bengals looked crappy in week 1, bounced back and should have pulled out the victory in week 2. The refs, you could call. You know, the refs and Mahomes are in bed, whatever. But I like the Bengals here on Monday night in week 3. I think they really have a bounce back. I really think they get into the win column here. I'm very confident. I mean, the spread tells the whole story. I think it's 8.5 right now. But that's my pick for week 3. I'm on the Cincinnati Bengals. Ride with your boy P-Dub. If you're playing the Survivor pool, and let's go to 3-0.
I like that pick. I think it is a very, very safe pick. Obviously, people might not feel the same if they lost week 1 with Cincinnati, but it's a different situation. Down 0-2, must win on your home field. Got to come away with the win here to prevent the 0-3, which is just almost statistically impossible to make a run into the playoffs when you start 0-3. Now, my pick here, not for the faint of heart. You probably might want to skip it this week. Scott already mentioned how I have been a little strategic. I've taken the Seahawks and the Steelers, a couple of teams here who you're probably not going to be wanting to use later on in some good spots. And I guarantee you that you will never want to use this team again for the rest of the season. And you won't want to use them here in week 3, but I'm going to do it. Carolina Panthers to upset the Raiders with Andy Dalton behind the snap here. Love the Panthers this week, ATS to cover in a situation here. It is the perfect spot for them. Talk about a letdown with the Raiders going on the road into Baltimore, pulling off the win. Now they got to go on the road for a second week in a row to Carolina, and the Panthers, all the smoke on Bryce Young, all these issues, all the drama. I get it. The defense, horrendous. The whole team, hideous. But so are the Raiders. Andy Dalton, the veteran, going to get them back on track, and the Carolina Panthers are going to sneak out a win here in week 3. And I guarantee you'll never want to use that team ever again this season on Survivor. Good time to use it and a good way to get it away.
Hey, if you're going to use it, this is the best spot. I got the Raiders. I said it in our show in week 1, under 4.5 wins, and they get a win that I didn't expect, obviously, against the Ravens last week. If you're going to use the Panthers, this is the week to do it. And again, I don't mind Andy Dalton.
Me either.
He's a decent quarterback. I think he kind of knows how to win. I mean, I don't hate it, Ben, as much as it's the Panthers, bud. Like, what are you doing? But if you're going to use them, I agree with you. This would be the spot to use them. I do wish you the best of luck. And if you pull this out, bro, you're in the strongest position of any Survivor pool in the world.
Yeah, sure. I'd have to believe that using those 3 off the bat. And here's the thing. I mean, obviously, the Raiders that go in and beat Baltimore. I already can see the overreaction Sunday night. Oh, my God, the Raiders beat the Ravens and then they lose to the Panthers. The NFL is rigged, this and that. It's not rigged. You just got to be a sharp motherfucker to win in it. And that's the insight for you guys this week.
Love it, bro. I friggin' love it. I wish you the best of luck, bro. I hope you're still alive next week. If you're not,
yeah, I probably won't be. So if someone actually takes it, I might be in the bottom of the Hudson somewhere. We'll see. We'll see what I got tied around my ankles. But moving on to the long shot props. I think we're both over so far. Did you cash last week on long shot prop?
No, I did not cash my long. It was Matt Stafford over 325. Yes. And I mean, I expected him to throw the ball a lot more than they did, but there was such a blowout. Still in the blowout, he should be throwing the ball a lot more. It's a mess. The friggin' Rams were a mess last week. So, yeah, I'm 0-2.
Yeah, I went J.K. Dobbins to 2+ touchdowns. He got the one. They couldn't find a way to get him in the end zone a second time. But that's how it plays out sometimes. And keep in mind, they're long shot props, guys. I mean, mine today is plus 400. If I hit this, the last 2 are a wash, and we're in the green on these to go. So it's going to be about that all season long. Scott, why don't you get us going here? Who are you looking at? Week 3, long shot prop for the P-Dub Nation.
So we're going to Thursday night. We're both going to Thursday night this week. I'm looking at the Jets QB, Mr. Aaron Rodgers. Looked terrible in week 1 against the Niners. Had a decent bounce back week, I guess you could call it, against the Titans. They pulled out a victory. He had 30 pass attempts against the Titans. I think we're going to see a little bit more activity as he gets used to the system. And on Thursday Night Football, I think Mr. A-Rod wants to come out and show the world what he's got. He's 40 years old. The man can still play. Monday Night Football to open the year did not show too much. So here we go. Aaron Rodgers over 275 yards passing on Thursday night. That's a plus 500.
Whoo, plus 500. I would love to see it. I was also talking to my buddy. You got to imagine Aaron Rodgers misses all last season. Now he's here going up against the Patriots for the first time in his career, first time with the Jets in his career, in primetime game. You got to imagine you're facing the team who's owned this division and really owned the NFL your entire career. It's time to make a statement game on primetime, let everyone know, hey, this is my division now. So I like that play. We'll see if that ends up folding out for us. I got one for you on the Patriots. Give me Ramondre Stevenson over 100 yards, plus 400. This man, all he's done so far is average just over 100 yards in the first 2 games. Only had 81 last week, over 120 in week 1. Someone's calling it an inconvenient time. We got more on that with Ramondre Stevenson. Now, this is a guy who has been given the ball a lot. This offense and their issues, granted, they've been competitive under Jacoby Brissett. In the matchups against the Jets last 2 seasons, Ezekiel Elliott, at this point in his career, he rushed for over 80 yards. Both these guys, Ramondre Stevenson and him, combined for 150 last year in this matchup against the Jets. A lot of carries, a lot of touches, and we've seen the Jets get torched. We saw what the Niners did with Mason in week 1, absolutely torched them on the ground, rushing yards all over the place. And last week, it was very similar with Tennessee. Now, Tennessee gave Pollard 17 carries. He only ended up with 60-some-odd yards. But I think this offensive line for the Patriots is going to help Ramondre Stevenson get there. 100-plus yards, plus 400. Take that to the bank.
I again, your plays, I rode with the first 2 weeks. I'm gonna ride with you all year, baby. I'm gonna give it a shot. I think we're both making money on these long shot props. I advise you guys to ride with us, and remember, plus 400, plus 500, right? If we hit either one of us is in the green on the season. So we only need to hit about 3-4 of them to make money this season. So give us a shot.
Hopefully we can cash them this week. And Scott and I are together on those props. We both like each other's reads, but we're against each other on the Civil War Game of the Week coming up. He kicked my ass in week 1 with the Cowboys versus the Browns. I come back last week. I said they were going to upset, and they just fell short off a bullshit flag, but they did cover the spread. Cincinnati Bengals, week 3, Civil War game. We're headed on to a matchup between the Bills and the Jags. Scott, who are you backing in this one?
I'm coming in hot. I'm coming out the shirt.
Oh,
Why are
man.
we coming out the shirt? Because we got the muscle, baby. And we got Mr. Josh Allen and the Bills, baby.
Oh.
Woo! I'm loving the Bills here, all right? Played on Thursday. Last they played on Thursday night against the Dolphins and looked phenomenal. How many days rest? We got 10 days wearing on extended rest. James Cook been cooking. The man's looked great. Unbelievable start for James Cook to the year. And think about this. The Bills defense has looked great. They played Arizona in week 1. Take away the first half where they gave 17 points. They've given up 21 points in 6 quarters. They've looked phenomenal. The offense doesn't have as many weapons as it did last year. No Diggs. But Josh Allen's figured it out. And when Bills are hitting that stride, they dominated Miami in Miami. I'm loving this spot, baby. I'm getting to 2-1 with my boy, Josh Allen.
Give me Trevor Lawrence and the Jags here to prevent going from 0-3. They're going to go 1-2 here to open up this season. Now, the defense hasn't been an issue. They held Cleveland to 18 points. Sure. Held 2 of those. Trevor Lawrence scored with the safety. So the defense held them to 16 points. In the week prior, a little bit of a sloppy game against Miami, a game they should have won. But they held down a very prolific Miami offense and kept it reasonable. Like the Jags a lot this week to come in and not only cover, but win outright here in Buffalo. You got the Bills coming on a massive letdown spot. They just embarrassed the Dolphins on primetime, and now the Jags going to have an opportunity to return the favor. You look at what they did defensively, held them down. Now, in the last 2 matchups between these 2 teams, Jags won both of those games in low-scoring matchups. Now, last year was 25-20 in London. The year prior was 9-6. 9-6. That's like a Patriots-Jets type of score, but it was 9-6 in the year prior, 2021. The last two matchups, Jags pulling both those outright. It's going to be another low-scoring defensive battle. Give me the Jags to pull it out. I will say, to your credit, it's the first matchup they've had in the last 5 years in Buffalo, so definitely a different atmosphere, but it's not December yet. Still warm enough out there. I think the Jags will be all right.
I mean, here's the thing, Ben. If the Jags aren't going to move the ball, so you better hope it's low. It better be 3-0. Otherwise, you got no shot, baby. I'm just kidding.
I'm cool.
I love
cool
this
with
part of the
the
show,
game.
man. This is a lot of fun. We're 1-1. Again, we need to remind you guys, we need those fantasy football punishments so we can come on here and, the losers got to do something painful.
Yeah, you guys got to make us
chug
some milk, eat a hot chip, maybe go wear a Speedo out in public. Hey, go on a date with a blow-up doll. You name it. You guys get a top comment. We'll do it. So make sure you guys start flooding the comments with what you want us to do there.
I'm ready for week 3, though. I've loved the NFL thus far. I'm so happy football's back. It is Tuesday. We're filming this on a Tuesday, so we got a little break. Tuesday, Wednesday, we're back to the MLB only, and then we're live Thursday with the Pats Jets, and I'm ready to roll for that game.
Yeah, guys, I already gave you plenty of insight. This should be uploading on Thursday morning, so welcome on into the P-Dub Report. Thank you for hanging in and watching. We are going to have a Thursday night promo, so if you guys want to get on that, send us a DM. Check the links in the stories. You can grab that. Scott, couple of shaky weeks 1, week 2. Week 1, fantastic. Week 2, little punch in the face. We got momentum with the Falcons last night. Let's steam into week 3.
I'm ready, baby. I'm ready. Let's keep it up. And hey, real quick, this is going to be available on X, on YouTube. Where else, Ben?
Yeah, X, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, those 5 platforms. So if you're listening, you're watching, you're doing whatever, I don't know, maybe you're using Braille, you can find it somewhere.
All right, baby. I love it. I appreciate you guys tapping in. And you guys know what we like to say. Let's go,
P-Dub Nation.